Chapter 5, Select Reading Methods for Teaching English Learners. In this chapter, you will be looking at 6 reading methods that provide ELs with integrated literacy skill development while valuing language usage. Without appropriate supports, ELs are more likely to be referred for and misplaced into special education. It is very important as educators that we understand our students' backgrounds and experiences in order to avoid this. Method 1 is the Language Experience Approach, LEA. This is a method that capitalizes on EL's own language and experiences. This method is implemented individually or in pairs, small groups, or whole class format. Each structure has its own strengths. Through this method, students discuss a shared experience and the teacher records their account of the experience. Steps and procedures for the Language Experience Approach are: students, along with the teacher, describe an experience, such as a school event or field trip, that was shared amongst all of the other students. Students use oral language to discuss their reactions and observations of the experience. This process allows students to listen as their partner and teacher use language to describe something familiar and develop oracy skills. Oracy skills is the ability to express oneself fluently and grammatically in speech. As students share the experience, the teacher writes verbatim their account. Students then are able to connect the spoken language to the written words. This is their text used for fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension development. Teacher reads the text, modeling fluency. Students then read the text aloud in unison with the teacher and in pairs. These are read multiple times. And the teacher uses the written account as a resource for developing specific literacy skills. This method incorporates the language domains of reading, writing, listening, and speaking within the student's experiences. Method 2, repeated readings. This method proves to be effective with ELs for increasing reading fluency. Through this method, ELs increase their reading rate and accuracy. As the teacher pre-teaches and uses words from the text throughout the lesson, students develop a deeper level of comprehension. Steps and procedures for repeated readings. Demonstrate and model how to use the repeated reading procedure. Pair the EL with a more proficient reader. Choose a short and culturally responsive passage that students can read, followed by discussion of the story, plot, and characters. Pre-teach vocabulary and provide students the opportunity to hear the passage, whether read by a teacher, peer, or a recording. Instruct each student in the pair to read the passage 3 to 5 times. Develop a monitoring system for students with correct words per minute. Progress should be monitored frequently, and recordings may be used to assess and monitor student progress. Incorporate comprehension questions and activities to ensure students are actively constructing meaning as they read. There is an AVID strategy that is called text-dependent questions within the writing process of AVID. In this process, the teacher creates questions to strengthen their thinking as well. Method 3 is reciprocal teaching. Reciprocal teaching is an instructional practice identified as a way of improving reading comprehension through explicit teaching of skills needed for metacognition. Students use 4 reading comprehension strategies: summarizing, questioning, clarifying, and predicting. The steps and procedures for reciprocal teaching. The teacher models the 4 reading comprehension strategies. The teacher also provides feedback and guidance as students begin to use the strategies. Some of the procedures that are used are summarizing. Readers attend to the most important ideas. Questioning. Students generate questions based on the most important points of the content. Clarifying. Students actively monitor their comprehension and evaluate their comprehension. And predicting. Students predict what they believe they will learn within the readings. Again, this is very similar to another AVID reciprocal teaching strategy that they have, but in AVID's strategy, the students also critically read the content or the text, but they create final projects that represent the content or the text. Method 4, collaborative strategic reading. Students work collaboratively collaboratively to comprehend the reading. There are various expert roles that students fulfill to guide the others through the strategies. The strategies are used throughout the reading, before, during, and after. And there are several strategies used throughout this process, such as preview, click and clunk, gist, and review. And you will read more about each one of those specific strategies in the chapter. Steps and procedures for collaborative strategic reading. 1. Select an appropriate text. The text aligns with the current unit of study and is usually informational. 2. Divide the text into 3 distinct sections. 3. Identify 2 or 3 keywords to pre-teach during preview. Remember, it's important to include visuals as much as possible within any lesson. 4. Identify potential clunks, words they cannot define, and fix up strategies they may use to understand the meaning of the words. The chapter also mentions this is where students might use context clues to identify the structure of the word, or also identify, look at the sentence structure or the word structure to understand the meaning. There's a strategy in AVID within interacting with the text that is similar to this, but it is called inside, outside, outside. Students first look inside the word to see if they can determine the meaning, prefixes, suffixes, base words, etc. Students then look outside of the word. This could be context clues, what's around it, what's in the sentence above it, below it. If they still don't understand the meaning, students will go outside of the word again and look it up in a dictionary, internet, etc. Students write a gist for each of the 3 text passage sections. Number 6, they write possible questions and a review statement. And number 7, be sure to organize students into heterogeneous groups and assign each to an expert role. Method 5, instructional conversations. This method was originally developed for dialogic talk for ELs and students with disabilities. The teacher is a facilitator of student development through the zone of proximal development. These conversations take place within the students and teacher. The reading material is analyzed, clarified, and expanded upon. This is very similar to Socratic seminar discussions that take place in a very similar fashion. Something to think about with this type of method and ELs is that these types of activities take time and practice. From my experience in the classroom, it is difficult for students to feel confident and comfortable for them to participate in these types of discussion right away. It takes a lot of coaching and guiding them to become academically proficient in these areas. And remember, you can always allow them to use sentence frames or sentence structure, sentence stems to help them start their conversations. Steps and procedures for instructional conversations. The teacher ensures the social and physical organization of the classroom for the conversations to occur among various groups of students. The teacher generates clear academic language and content objectives toward which the dialogue is guided. The teacher is a facilitator throughout the discussion amongst the students by ensuring that students are talking and stay focused on the objective. The teacher activates prior knowledge, direct teaching with exploration, asks questions to promote discussion, promotes complex language, elicits justification for statements, encourages student response, restates students' words, and clarifies as needed. Again, this is the teacher coaching the students through this process. Both teacher and students evaluate whether their conversation met the academic language and content objectives. Method 6 is the class-wide peer tutoring. Pairs of students work together in a game-like context to develop reading skills. Students take turns in the roles of student and tutor, with the tutor posing to the student questions related to concepts initially taught by the teacher. Pairs of students take turns in the roles of student and tutor, with the tutor posing to the student questions related to concepts initially taught by the teacher. The steps and procedures for class-wide peer tutoring. Students are taught the process of working in pairs. You assign pairs and teams. They are assigned based on skill proficiency. Students engage in the peer tutoring process. Points from each pair are tallied daily. The team with the most points is announced to the class. The tutor asks questions, evaluates the responses, provides feedback, and awards points accordingly. At the end of the week, the students are tested on the content. In summarizing, methods for teaching ELs to read requires multiple components. They need to be delivered in a culturally and linguistically responsive supportive environment. English learners and all learners need to be challenged to engage with complex ideas in text, using higher levels of thinking, avoiding use of reading text written only at lower levels of complexity. Something to remember is all students benefit from methods and activities that allow them to participate in discussions, written tasks and assignments, collaboration, and speaking activities. It's important to also note the type of learners in your classroom and which method works best. If you want your students to be academic scholars, then it takes time and practice.